Wildling requires making it to the 4th floor. This unlocks a new character, the Wildling.
Random requires you to beat the game. This unlocks a randomized button for your character.
Deprived requires you to beat the Dark Caves. This unlocks a background where the player begins with no items or spells.
Strong requires you to die 10 times in your adventures. This unlocks a +1 strength background.
Bookworm requires you to read 20 spellbooks. This unlocks a background that makes spellbooks level twice when you read them, and takes a point from strength and defense and puts 2 points into intelligence.
Survivor requires you to die 100 times. This unlocks a background that allows you to heal an extra 4 health between levels at a bonfire.
Illiterate requires you to read 100 scrolls. This unlocks a background that makes reading impossible, but you start with 5 sexy bombs.
Raised by a Merchant requires you to buy 40 items from the shop. This unlocks a background that lowers prices at the shop by 25%.
Ascetic. This requires you to collect 10,000 gold accumulatively over your adventures. This unlocks a background that increases your strength, dexterity, vitality, and intelligence by 1 point each, but destroys gold on contact.
Farsighted requires you to fire 400 arrows. This unlocks a background that increases visibility but has a higher chance to miss attacks with a melee weapon.
Snake Hitter requires you to drink down 5 poison potions. This unlocks a background where poison potions heals the player 15 points, but potions of regeneration are much less effective. You also start with 1 extra point into poison resist.
Wanted requires you to get murdered by shopkeeps 10 times. This unlocks a background that starts you with a stolen ring that has +3 luck and gold collector, but shopkeepers really want to destroy you.
Nibble requires you to solve the jumping puzzle in the caravan area. You did it!
You did it!
This background makes you light on your feet, +1 speed.
Whiskers requires you to die to wisps 3 times. This unlocks a background where endless streams of green wisps flow through the level. The wisps are on a set path and will not chase the player, but deal way too much damage.
Synchronized requires you to complete the forest. This unlocks a background that freezes time when you don't move.
Death's Apostle requires you to beat 3 floors with death becomes easier to you. This unlocks a background that starts you with 1 max health and a massive increase to damage.
Armored requires you to beat the game as the Knight. This unlocks a class-specific background that starts you off with +1 defense armor, but -2 damage on your copper sword.
Boomerang requires you to beat the game with the Rogue. This unlocks a class-specific background that starts you with a boomerang instead of a bow.
Heirloom requires you to beat the game as the Mage. This unlocks a class-specific background that replaces your starting wand with a +2 intelligence ring.
Training Dummy requires you to destroy 10 shrines. This unlocks a sentient training dummy to beat on in the caravan area.
The alternative forest track requires you to beat the forest. This adds new music to the forest. Now that the secrets are out,
more will come, and we are your guides.
If you like this video,
drop us a like.
So we know you want more.
If you like our content,
seductively smash that subscribe button.